Back to the day 2 of our Gyan program. It's wonderful to see the same excitement and energy as yesterday. On day 1, we journeyed across continents exploring the current dietary guidelines and the sustainable transformation agenda for global food and nutrition security. Today, we have an equally enriching lineup of sessions that promise to deepen our understanding of global food systems and nutrition challenges. We begin with our first lecture, Food Security Challenges in Europe in the context of the prolonged Russian-Ukrainian conflict, where we'll explore how ongoing geopolitical issues are shaping food availability and trade in Europe. Our second lecture, Eating Sturgeon, an Endangered Delicacy, will take us into the fascinating world of biodiversity, conservation and ethical food choices. Up next, the third lecture, Nutrition Security 2030 and Viksit Bharat 2047, will connect global nutrition goals with India's vision of a healthy developed nation. And finally, we'll wrap up the day with a tutorial on current dietary guidelines worldwide and their role in sustainability and adequate nutrition, tying together the key ideas that guide our journey toward a more nourished and sustainable world. So, without further delay, let's begin the proceedings of the day. It gives me great pleasure to once again welcome Dr. Rapso, our esteemed foreign faculty and speaker, to deliver the first lecture on day 2 and share his valuable insights with us. Over to you, sir.
Good morning. I hope you are ready for the second day of conferences. And if you have, yesterday I forgot to tell you my email, and tomorrow in the presentations I will include my email on the first slideshow, and then of course you can contact me if you have any doubt, if you want to discuss anything. I will share my contact email with all of you. So today we will start our lectures with this hot topic, I believe, very emergent topic, at least for the European context, but I believe for the world context, it is the food security. Oh, sorry, I forgot the micro. The food security challenges in Europe in the context of prolonged Russian-Ukrainian conflict, and how it affected the food security, sustainability, of course, especially the food access and the food availability, and how it still affecting the people to have access to, especially to the most basic foods. Making a brief introductory explanation to this happening, to this event, we may start to mention that in the early hours of 24 February 2022, Russia began a full-scale military invasion of Ukraine, resulting in civilian casualties and the destruction of vital infrastructure. In addition to significant human fatalities and devastation, the war has jeopardized global food security by disrupting agricultural production and trade in one of the world's most significant food exporting regions. For example, at least in Europe, not only in Portugal but in all the Europe. Ukraine was one of the main suppliers of grains, and for example, the sunflower oil. We have discussed this a little bit yesterday, but here you will see more concrete, more specific data, and that made an incredible change in the day-to-day life, not only in, of course, Ukrainian citizens, but also in all the European citizens in a very specific way, from not only the point of view of the access to food, but all dimensions. But of course, here we will focus in this issue that was the price of foods and the day-to-day life of all people after this day, 24 February 2022. It has significantly contributed to rapidly rising global food prices, as we have mentioned, aggravating existing food system vulnerabilities already worsened by climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic. These countries, Russia and Ukraine, supply about 30% of globally traded wheat, 20% of corn, and 70% sunflower oil. Overall, Russia and Ukraine export around 12% of the global total caloric trade. It's very, very significant. Furthermore, before the conflict, Russia was the world's largest supplier of fertilizers and one of the leading oil and natural gas exporters owing to its vast reserves. After decades of low inflation, the European Union faced new economic, political and social challenges from increasing consumer prices. Rising energy and food prices are already generating high societal costs in terms of decreased buying power, and they are also anticipated to exacerbate material deprivation, poverty and social exclusion throughout the European Union, and unfortunately, it still is remaining today nowadays. While food security is only one aspect of the consequences of the war, it is a critical one that affects the well-being of millions and millions of people, not only in Russia, Ukraine for sure, not only in Europe, but I believe all around the world. Therefore, the focus on the impact of the war on food security is very crucial, is vital, because it highlights the urgent need for measures to address these concerns, these issues. It is also worth noting that food security is interconnected with other aspects of the war's consequences, such as the inflation, poverty, and social instability. Therefore, by addressing food security, it is possible to have positive ripple effects on other aspects of the conflict consequences. Here in this graphical illustration, we have the representation of some threats posed by war and other disruptions to food security related to Ukrainian-Russian conflict and its consequences on food security powers. We have the availability for sure and stability. Regarding the availability, we have the crisis of fertilizers, supply shortage, the trade ban, the stability, our energy prices, the energy prices also increased a lot, rising interest rates, political turmoil, regarding the food accessibility, market disruption, price hike, high inflation, and also regarding the utilization with the dietary diversity and the nourishment and low productivity. Here another illustration of these impacts of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict or war, as you prefer to call it, on global food security, and how did affect this pillars: availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability. So regarding availability, we have the factors regarding the supply with potential immediate impacts regarding the logistic blockages, the restrictions on the export of the 2021-2022 harvest, increase in energy, gas, and input prices regarding the fertilizers and production and stocks damages. some indirect and cascading impacts. Panic buying at the country level, delayed sowing, cultivation, decrease of production, yield due to our fertilizer use. This is the main impact regarding availability. When talking about the accessibility, the factors and elements are the affordability and access regarding the economic accessibility and also the physical one, the physical accessibility. The potential immediate impact was the increase in food prices in local currencies in food import dependent countries, and of course the inflation. And the indirect and cascading impact, the economic recession, income and purchasing power losses, political instability, and unrest around the globe. But the utilization, the factors and elements are food quality and safety, dietary diversity, and not seeing some potential negative impacts. However, we can mention the indirect and cascading impacts as the increase in malnutrition and deterioration in the diet quality. When talking about malnutrition, we are especially talking about hunger and undernourishment, and of course the correlation in micronutrients deficiencies. Finally, the stability and the factors related to it, the evolution and duration of the conflict, potential immediate impacts, the effects on food availability, access, and utilization over time, and this is the most relevant impacts regarding the Russian-Ukrainian conflict or on global food security. The impact of the war on the global cereals market, and here I bring the case of your country, of India, that I looked for, and following the war in Ukraine, India sought to cover the global red supply shortfall and intends to export a record 10 million tons in 2022-2023. However, a record-breaking heat wave during India's warmest March on record has reduced this year's wet harvest potential, cutting production by up to 50% in some regions of the country. India's export ban has been denounced by the G7 developed countries who believed it would exacerbate this crisis. Indeed, the impact of India's decision was immediate. Prices on the European market skyrocketed on Monday, 16 May 2022, and the closure, the red price is 438 euros a ton. That is too much. Here we can see the proportion of Ukraine and Russia's combined global exports in 2022. We can see, for example, the percentages of sunflower oil, sunflower cake, both countries that are represented in gray, yellow on Ukraine, blue Russian, and gray both countries, more than 80%. So it's very, very significant. As a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, global markets were disrupted. Short-term disruptions in global grain supply and long-term effects on natural gas and fertilizer markets negatively impacted producers during the planting season. This disruption might exacerbate already high food price inflation, posing a significant threat to low-income net food importers, many of whom have suffered a rise in malnutrition rates due to the pandemic disruptions. Here you can see the prices, the consumer price indices in Germany in 2015, before the conflict, and you see that it starts to get higher in July 2022, from January 28th. And then, with the start of the conflict in 2022, after the conflict, we see that the price of food and energy get higher, and higher. Our Europeans continuously feel the strain of the rise in food prices and the inflation rate. As a result, many European citizens are losing buying power of necessary commodities. We are talking about basic commodities, especially basic foods. For instance, even Germany, which has a solid domestic production and does not rely much on Ukrainian export, is very susceptible to escalating inflation, driven mainly by the rising cost of Russian energy and fertilizer. So you have this case of Germany that is not directly so much dependent on the foods that come from Ukraine, but it was very dependent on the energy and fertilizers from Russia. So this affected everybody, especially in the European continent. Reshaping European Union food security amid the war crisis. So, prompt action from the European Union to maintain food security and build a resilient food system. What happened? What were made? So, European Union farmers support the package worth 500 million euros to safeguard food security and strengthen the resilience of food systems. The reduction of energy import dependency and price shocks through the REPAL European Union plans, maintaining the European Union single market by avoiding restrictions and bans on exports. The Fund for European Aid to the Most Deprived provides food and essential material support worth 3.8 billion euros, using the new cap strategy to plans to decrease the release on gas, fuel, and inputs such as pesticides and fertilizers, a unique and temporary exception to enable the cultivation of any crops for food and feed on fallow land while farmers retain the full amount of the greening payment, and specific temporary exemptions from current animal feed import regulations. So we must adapt some strategy, some measures to mitigate these effects of the war crisis. And this is what we were talking about. This is also an illustration for the actions regarding ensuring food security and strengthening food system resilience. About the food availability, we have the ensured fertilizer supply, farmer support package, lifting export restrictions. Regarding utilization, the food behavior change, diet diversity, food quality and safety, the accessibility of the food price cap, increased food aid, limiting inflation, and about the stability, the lowering interest rates, energy price cap, and political stability. In this context, the Russian-Ukrainian war, to enhance the resilience of food system against future crises, we have outlined 5 key initiatives that will help global policymakers, governments, and of course the academic, the researchers, to minimize the impact of food insecurity in the European Union. So the first is food prices will rise due to higher energy costs, since fertilizers and transportation costs will also increase. As a result, renewable energy sources must be adopted by European Union farmers to lower the cost of agricultural output. Second, the governments in the European Union should impose an energy price cap to stimulate price volatility. For instance, the Hungarian government has set energy and food prices caps and it's lowering inflation. Third, monetary policy should remain on track to restore price stability, while fiscal policy should strive to reduce cost of living pressures while remaining appropriately restrictive in line with monetary policy. Then, the war might also cause further disruptions to global supply chains, making international trade even more challenging. Export restrictions and bans should be avoided to preserve the European Union single market. Then, the war may have political repercussions as well. For instance, increased energy costs could result in instability and violence in society and politics. Therefore, European Union leaders must provide quality food aid to their citizens. What can we conclude from this analysis regarding food security and the consequences to food security from this conflict that happened, and it is happening at this moment in Russia and Ukraine. So it concludes, you can conclude that increasing food aid, ensuring a stable fertilizer supply, imposing an energy price cap, initiating a farmer support package, switching to renewable energy sources for cultivation, changing individual food behaviors, lifting trade restriction and political stability can safeguard food security pillars and strengthen the resilience to the European food system. And what is the main challenge and perhaps the main problem regarding this? All these actions, all these changes take time, and the conflict is happening. So it will take time to make the status quo change, to make the paradigm change, and of course, it is important to think, to reflect, and how to avoid future happenings, future conflicts, and to be more protected of this, that the consequences won't be so harmful as they are at this moment. But of course, if we analyze one by one of these proposals, we see that is not possible to make them yet when the war is happening, when people are losing their lives, are dying, and of course their neighbors are suffering from the consequences of the high cost of some foods, the high cost of energy, and especially from all these pillars I highlight, food access, food availability are the most relevant that were affected, and we are here, of course, only analyzing the main aspects related to food security. Of course, many other problems affected and also are affecting the people's lives, the European populations, and not only European populations, worldwide populations with this conflict. So now I would like to hear about your point of view, about your opinion. Tell me a little bit more regarding how this conflict affected your day-to-day life, not only as researchers, as students, as professionals, but also as consumers. How did you feel affected in your day-to-day life after the beginning of this conflict? How how did you feel when you went to the supermarket buy some basic foods? It was the same. You feel the prices get different? No. Please let me also know your opinion. Perhaps we start this discussion. Not you make a question to me, but I make this question to you. And please, I would appreciate who wants to share their experience from how was your life before 2022, February 2022, before the conflict began, and then, especially in the first period after this conflict raised up. So please let me know a little bit of your experience, and then of course any question you have, we can also discuss.
So like when the war started, basically like me being, I used to go to grocery and the supermarkets. So the sudden change, what I saw for almost around 2 years was that the lack of uh, provision of sunflower oil, because it got totally deleted from the aisles, like from the markets. Like there was no sunflower oil for almost 1.5 years. Like when I used to go to markets in 2022 till 2023, and when they came, so later on the prices were almost double. Like we used to get at a price of 120 or 150 per liters, where it went almost to 350 per liter. So this was the major change in the sunflower oil, which I
Sunflower. So you had exactly the same problem as we have in Portugal, in Europe,
yeah,
regarding the
exactly.
sunflower oil.
So we substituted it with groundnut and soybean oil, like according to that. So that was the major change
The
which we
major
saw.
change.
Yeah.
And any other specific food, or only the sunflower?
No, because like in India we get imported like the sunflower oils basically from Ukraine, and apart from that wheat also.
The
But
same as Europe. Ukraine is the 70% of the world
exactly,
that is dependent on the exportations from Ukraine regarding sunflower oil. So I believe that everybody felt the changing
major
and the
change in the,
availability, and of course in the prices of sunflower oil.
because when we talk about wheat, basically we also grow a lot of wheat in this region, like in the northern region. So I don't believe that we had that scarcity compared to other countries or maybe the European nations. So that was the major change.
Okay. How can we avoid this in the future? Any any idea apart of this that we mentioned here? What do you think about this? Let's see. These ideas. I think this can be fine, but the problem is the time that will take to make the needed changes.
So
No?
like,
What is your
like
point of view?
majorly what I believe is that the trend, like usually people go what the trend is. So
Yes.
when we talk about trends, we try to inculcate the foreign ingredients in our diet basically. So this changes the whole scenario of what domestically you are growing and whether you are consuming it or not. So, like for example, if we are dependent on sunflower oil totally, like the households in India, if they are totally dependent on the sunflower oil, for example, so it will change the shift of the domestically produced oils which are available here in India.
Yes, when you are more dependent
Exactly, from other
from
state.
others, that can be a problem when the others fail. So this is sustainability. If you don't depend on the others, if you eat local products and produce your own products, if you have renewable energy, so you are less dependent from the others. So that is a kind of protection. But of course, you can change that in one day, for one day to other. This take time, but of course, it shouldn't be excuse to don't do nothing. So it is important to think on it and start to do something, make some plans and projects to be more independent. And not only for India, not only for Portugal, not only for, I think all countries should reflect on this. And of course, this is easier for some countries because of their size, their natural resources, their geographical position. This is easier for some countries than to the others, but it is a reflection that all countries, all governments and stakeholders should think because in nowadays world, I think that nobody is excluded from a possible conflict very near in the neighborhoods. Because before this conflict, before the 2022, nobody in Europe could think that this would happen. And one day to the other, we wake up with this scenario. So, and change the people's lives, not only the Ukrainian ones, not only the Russian ones, but the all European lives, because a lot of people moved from Ukraine to other countries. The prices change completely, prices of food, prices of energy. So it made a huge difference, and we are living that problem today. And it is very, very complicated, very hard. And of course, it affects food security globally, not only in those specific regions, specific countries.
So like, sir, my question is like basically how you guys changed the shift of when the Ukrainian war started. So like, as you said that the corn, the wheat, and the sunflower oil. So how guys you substituted with other food items in
Yes,
your
for
diet?
example, you have sometimes in the supermarket a part of the prices has raised, increased a lot. The supermarket was only allowed to sell 2 liters, 2 bottles, 1 liter each for people. The price increased a lot. I don't know, almost 8 euros, 10 euros per liter. But even if you have money, you couldn't buy more than 2 bottles. So this portion was managed like this, and then find other options, find other solutions, of course. And with the time, of course, there was some liberations and some sunflower arrived, but especially in the first period was difficult, and the prices of food not only then because the transportation it affects the transportation, the energy was very, very increased also, and this affects everything. When energy raised up, the prices of all goods are increased, not only the specific food. Everything raised, and of course the salaries didn't didn't increase. So the question we talked yesterday regarding hunger, a lot of people also in Europe, not only in Portugal, suffered from that. Parents that couldn't have buy the basic foods to give to their children to feed well.
And like, which is the basic oil, like staple oil you guys use?
Yes, sunflower oil,
Sunflower oil,
sunflower
sorry.
oil, sunflower oil. Of course, we also use olive oil, olive oil. But sometimes for different applications, olive oil and sunflower oil are
So
the main oils we use there.
like currently, like which is more cheap, the olive oil or the sunflower?
Traditionally, olive oil is more expensive, but when the conflict started, sunflower oil surpassed easily the olive oil. Some people use sunflower oil because the price was lower, but with this change, things also changed.
So like, did that shifted towards butter more, or it continued with oil? Like when the shift came,
The butter.
butter, yeah, because it's
No, butter didn't affect too much. Butter, the price of butter didn't affect too much. Was specific more on the oil.
thank you.
Sir, I have a small doubt. As you already, since you are from Portugal, you already mentioned that you find solutions for your problems that you face from Russian-Ukrainian conflict. So I would like to ask if there is any specific national policy or strategy you have adopted as a Portugal citizen, or your government has adopted for the rising food and energy cost.
Happily, my country didn't export much energy from Russia. Most of the energy come from the north of Africa. So the point of view specific from Portugal is different from, for example, the case I mentioned here for Germany. Germany is high dependently from Russian gas for energy. So the situation, that point of view, was much more critical. Germany wasn't very dependent regarding food, and for especially from Ukraine, but from energy, yes. In Portugal, the situation was different. We were more dependent about food and not dependent about energy. But of course, with the transportation, everything, the prices also raise up. But this increase are more notorious in other countries, especially in Germany. Germany was a very, very inflation about that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Good morning, sir.
Good
So,
morning.
So if you go to like we focus about stability. So what do you think if this conflict goes on for more than years? I mean more years. So what will be the stability there about food?
That is a good question, and I would like to have an answer to you and to everybody. We don't know. We are living day to day. We don't know if the conflict will go through 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years. I hope no, but the problem is right that we have no stability. We don't know the day after tomorrow. So to manage it is very, very complicated. How to make the stability possible, and it is crucial. That is crucial, of course, for all these questions, all these concerns. That depends mainly about a couple of persons in this world, the politicians, the people who really demand on the world. They have to be aligned and they have to discuss and, in theory, make the better for the populations. Because otherwise, it's very, very complicated. If one country escalates the conflict, it's a problem because in the other side, it will have a response. And with this conflict remaining active and day after day, this affects everybody. And the more affected are, of course, and unfortunately, the populations that are suffering in the field, that are suffering without money to buy foods, without money to survive. That is a question for more than 1 million euros, as we say. It's complicated to know. I wish I would like to have an answer to you. What we can do is find strategy to mitigate the effects and the conflict. But all of us, expect, of course, that politicians be in agree that find a solution, a political solution, to finish this war and make the people's life not to how they were before the conflict, but because that is impossible. One thing is what was Ukraine and the life of those people, of those Ukrainians before the war and now, and it's not okay. It's over. Let's start again. But the life is not is not the same. At least not to prolong this conflict because this doesn't go to anywhere. Go to anywhere positive, of course. So,
Any more questions?
on the top.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So my question is regarding the food security. So what do you think that what are the long-term strategies that can balance the environmental sustainability?
The environmental sustainability regarding the what do you think? How does the conflict affect the food sustainability? Is that your question? The food environment?
Yeah,
Yes.
long-term strategies.
Long stability. The micro is off.
Long-term strategies.
Long-term strategies regarding the food environment. We have here some examples right in this slideshow, but of course it will depend country to country. But because the environment is mainly affected in the region where the war is taking place, because for example, the fields where land is cultivated, where the food are raised, it is now not proper to cultivate more. Most of the fields are not more proper to cultivate. So what those people will do in the future to start a new life? And most of that people who lived from the agriculture. the farmers. So that is a specific for that people. They have to find another lands. They have to clean those lands. That is the most difficult challenge regarding food and agriculture. For sure, for sure. That is why I said that even the conflict ends now. Miraculous way to end the conflict right now. The life will not be the same as before. The lands, the cultivars, everything changed. So that is also a good question, especially for the Ukrainian population, because how they restart the cultivation of their lands. It will take time, of course. It will take time. We'll find another lands or find a way of cleaning those lands. It will be hard. Are good questions that the answer is not. I wish to have a concrete answer for those questions, but that is the problem. And I visited Ukraine 2 times before the conflict, and I can imagine how it is right now. And when I see the images on the television of that country of that fields, it is very very hard, and I can't imagine how it is and how will be the life of those people after this conflict that nobody knows when it comes to an end. So it's very hard to imagine and affects all dimensions. And we are talking about agriculture, about food security, food access, but of course there are a lot of more issues for those people.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question.
If there are any more questions, feel free to ask.
No more questions?
I think all of their doubts have been cleared. Thank you, sir.